The king, who thought himself untouchable, watched his palace burn around him at midnight. Welcome to Fiction Saga, where history whispers dark lessons through flickering torchlight tonight. Centuries ago, a ruthless coastal king ruled with iron taxes and frozen compassion. He treasured golden crowns more than children, laughter, or farmers breathing without fear. Granaries overflowed, while villagers counted ribs like beads each time the taxman passed. Anyone who questioned royal orders vanished quietly into stone prisons without farewell letters. The king declared, "Justice is whatever pleases me," carved above the throne. He built a marble court where only wealthy tongues could purchase listening ears. Poor farmers waited outside like forgotten shadows, holding petitions nobody bothered to read. Among them lived Thomas, a young scribe whose steady hands betrayed restless conscience. He copied laws all day, watching lies transform into official record and memory. One evening, an old historian, Elias, visited the records hall carrying weathered scrolls. Elias whispered to Thomas, "History remembers debts unpaid by kings and false victories." He unrolled cracked parchment filled with tales where tyrants always met inevitable ruin. Each story ended the same way. Cruelty circled back like winter storms. Thomas asked, "Do you really believe karma works through ordinary, frightened people?" Elias replied, "History is karma written slowly in ink and irreversible consequences." Weeks later, storms destroyed harvests. The kingdom fields lay brown and broken. Instead of mercy, the king raised taxes again, refusing to open emergency granaries. He hosted a glittering banquet, while desperate families searched gutters for spilled grain. Inside the palace, musicians played louder to drown hunger cries beyond the walls. One noble joked, "Famine makes people obedient." The king laughed, pleased with cruelty. Servants carried platters of roasted meats, past guards whose own rations had shrunk. Thomas stood in a shadowed corner, recording every decree, every joke, every insult. That night he walked home, listening to mothers bargaining with silence for children. In the market square, a child collapsed, clutching stale bread like sacred treasure. Thomas knelt beside him, feeling anger rise like a tide against stone. He remembered Elias' words, "History remembers debts and always demands full payment eventually." Next morning, fresh proclamations demanded even higher taxes from starving villagers without exceptions. Elias returned carrying a sealed leather volume of forgotten royal trials and rebellions. He said, "These describe your great-grandfather's cruelty and the people's final response." In those pages, another greedy king ignored suffering until revolt swallowed his throne. Thomas read how that king begged for mercy he once denied to thousands. Elias said justice sometimes travels slowly, but never loses direction or final address. Soon after, the current king announced a gigantic monument celebrating his eternal greatness. He ordered starving villagers to build towering statues while stomachs growled louder daily. Each worker received nothing except the honor of obedience and constant shouted orders. Thomas watched scaffolding rise like bleached bones above alleys filled with restless whispers. Among palace soldiers, quiet complaints spread about missing rations and unpaid promised stipends. One, Captain Rowan, had lost his younger sister to a preventable hunger fever. He carried out orders, but secretly wrote reports describing corruption, cruelty, and neglect. Those sealed letters were buried in archives where dust usually erased uncomfortable truths. Thomas quietly copied them at night and hid duplicates beneath warped floorboards safely. He started recording every bribe, threat, and broken promise he witnessed during sessions. Late one night, he found Elias waiting beside the palace well beneath stars. Elias said, "The wheel is turning. People are almost ready to push." Thomas admitted fear that when wheel turned, it might crush him completely instead. Elias answered, "Truth gets bruised but never breaks, and never walks alone forever." Construction on the monument reached its highest platform above the frightened, crowded streets. Cracks appeared in rushed stone foundations, ignored by supervisors chasing praise and bonuses. Engineers warned the king of danger. He dismissed them as cowards lacking faith. During the unveiling ceremony, the king climbed proudly atop the unfinished central statue. He shouted, "I am destiny. No force on earth or sky moves me." Thunder answered, although the sky moments before had been perfectly clear and calm. Trumpets blared, crowds murmured, then the weakened platform shifted under the king boots. Marble blocks groaned, ropes snapped, nobles screamed, scrambling away in glittering, terrified confusion. The king clung to a carved shoulder, staring at the dizzying ground below. In that hanging heartbeat, Thomas knew history itself was taking sharp, detailed notes. Rowan ordered archers to hold fire and protect workers instead of statues. The main scaffold collapsed inward, strangely sparing lower levels filled with common laborers. The king survived, but shattered his leg crown and borrowed image of invincibility. Doctors said he would never stride arrogantly through crowded courtrooms again in triumph. As he lay recovering, Rowan quietly assumed control of palace security and gates. Outside, grain riots erupted when empty wagons rolled past houses smelling of hunger. Instead of crushing protesters, Rowan opened royal storehouses and ordered food immediately shared. He had read Thomas' copies and believed the recorded truth more than flattery. When the king demanded troops punish rioters, Rowan refused his command without hesitation. He said, "My oath is to this kingdom's survival, not your wounded pride." Word spread quickly. Palace guards now stood beside people, not over them. Nobles who once laughed at famine closed shutters, hiding behind trembling jeweled hands. Elias gathered villagers in the square, reading old trial scrolls through cracked voice. He told them how earlier tyrants fell when warnings were ignored too long. The crowd anger hardened into focused understanding, not mindless chaos or blind revenge. Thomas stepped forward, carrying boxes of copied letters, decrees, and hidden accusations. He read aloud every theft, every threat, every cruel joke, signed officially. No one could pretend ignorance after truth echoed against stone and memory. The Council of Elders demanded an open hearing beneath the marble arches. For the first time, peasants, witnesses, and soldiers stood together within that court. The broken king was carried in on a plain, unadorned wooden chair. He tried to thunder orders, but coughing turned his words into weak echoes. Thomas presented his records. Rohan confirmed events. Elias connected them to older stories. The council voted to strip the king of power, wealth, and privilege. He was exiled to a remote, stormy fortress overlooking relentless, crashing waves. There, each night, he listened to the sea sound like accusing voices. Seized treasures were melted down, funding grain reserves, bridges, schools, and public archives. New leaders chosen by council swore to publish decisions and taxes transparently. Thomas became chief archivist, protecting documents so future generations could recognize repeating patterns. Rowan reorganized the guard to defend wells, markets, and fields before palaces. Elias taught young students that power without compassion invites inevitable ruin and collapse. The ruined monument site became a public garden shaded by tall, whispering trees. At its center, a simple plaque read, "Justice grows when memory speaks." Parents brought children there, sharing how a kingdom nearly starved from one ego. They also told how brave witnesses turned history into karma with courage. Like and subscribe to Fiction Saga if you love powerful justice stories.